I got to
Good.
get set up. So I'm going to post the link one more time. Then we're going to get into our little mini seminar
Yep, exactly.
that technical Philly
Yep.
C, McTechie C
Techie C.
did. And
Yeah,
we're going to
yeah.
get right into it.
I get a lot of questions. And the problem with the internet is you have information, but a lot of it's not translated, or if you don't understand it, you write something and you get 25 different answers. So I'm going to go over some of the numbers, how I see them, and how I interpret their impact to ball performance. So any day
We'll
now.
start right out.
All right.
Can you read all that?
I can, except for the part where I'm in the bottom, but that's okay. So ball motion has three phases, right? It has a skid phase, and that's dictated by surface and RG. Then it has a hook phase dictated by differentials, total diff and intermediate diff, and then a roll phase, and that's at the end of the pattern when it starts to roll forward. If it rolls forward too early, that's bad. We'll just keep that in mind for later. The two forces of energy that impact ball motion is rotational energy. That's the side turn or the spin that you apply to the ball, and transitional energy, which is the ball going in the direction towards the pins. Straight part of the ball motion. But when rotational energy and transitional energy get closer together, the ball starts to roll forward. And if they get to become equal, the ball rolled out. So when your rotational energy and your transitional energy become the same, the ball's rolling forward. Okay, so keep that in mind as we go forward and talk about this. The RGs directly relate to the spin rate of the ball. High RG spins slower, low RG spins quicker. Years ago, we used to use the figure skater as an example. The guy starts to spin, or the girl, and they have their arms out. And then as they bring their arms closer, they start to spin faster. So think of your bowling ball as a skater, and the one with the arms closer is a lower RG ball, and the ones with the arms out are a higher RG ball. You want your ball to rev up quicker, look for lower RG numbers. So people that are speed dominant, and they want the ball to go into a roll, look for low RG numbers as a start. That they don't have a big of an impact maybe on the ball performance as they did years ago, because we have a lot more knowledge about total diff and intermediate diffs, and also the cover stocks. But lower RGs, like I said a little while ago, the mass is closer to the geometric center of the ball. It's center heavy. Conversely, the high RG balls have cover heavy. We'll do questions later on all of this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So the total differential, that's the big number, the big diff number, dictates the flare potential of the ball. It's very simple. You get a ball with an 055 differential, it's going to flare a lot. It's got a high diff, it reads the friction sooner and harder. So that means when it hits dry, it's going to start to flare a lot. Low diff balls are more subtle, and they're not as sensitive to the friction. There's more of a gradual change in direction. So differentials tell you how soon the ball will react to the friction and how much hook potential the ball will have. So you start looking at, for instance, my favorite ball is the Intel. It's 035 diff.
It is?
It is, isn't it? I'm sure it is. And that's moderately low. The sneak attack is about the same, but before that, the counter attack and the rack attack was in the teens, and the counter attack was in the 20s.
Yeah, I think they're 021-ish, and then
something like
024
that.
somewhere in there.
Correct. So those are the things you have to look at. It just tells you how much it's going to react to friction and how much hook potential. So based on the style of bowler, you take a good look at your differentials. If you're a slow speed player, without regard to what your rev rate is, you want to look at a lower differential ball with a higher RG, because it'll get it down the lane much easier.
Right.
And total diffs impact the rotational phase of the ball motion. If it's a higher differential ball, the rotational phase is going to have more hook potential. So you have to be careful when you start to select diffs. Now, the intermediate diff is the tricky part. The intermediate diff impacts the length of the hook phase. So you remember the ball goes skid, hook, roll. And the length of the hook phase is impacted by, if you look at the intermediate diff, because the higher intermediate diff shorten the hook phase. which means that the ball will start to go into that transition where the rotational transition will start to become equal, and the ball will roll out because you shorten the hook window. So high intermediate differentials will shorten the hook window and get the ball into a roll phase quicker. The sooner the ball gets into a roll phase, the more potential the ball has to roll out. So what you want to avoid if you're a low speed player or a rev dominant player, you want to be careful with your the intermediate diff, because you don't want those two to get close to each other, transitional, rotational, and you shorten that hook window a lot when you use high intermediate diffs. So therefore, the ball will end up rolling out, and you can flat 10 a lot and not understand why. It's because that ball has been done hooking and is now in the roll phase. Lower intermediate diffs have a longer hook window, less likely to roll out. They have a more gradual reaction. So they're not going to be like the quick snap off the spot as much as a higher intermediate diff ball would have.
Right. Typically more of a sweeping motion on the back.
Correct.
And typically more continuation to the pins because it's still hooking. You'll see exactly more impact angle in relation to the entry angle. Where a ball with a higher intermediate typically will have a very high entry angle, but the impact angle won't be as dramatic compared to that number.
And if you look at our videos, when we do the Throwbot videos, we always talk about impact angle and entry angle. And the bigger the difference, with the exception
of this last one.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a minute. But anyway, you're right. So
that ball should have been called incognito.
Exactly right. So just comparing the two, and I think this is our last slide. Symmetrical balls have a longer hook window and a more gradual transition through the three phases of skid, hook, and roll, because they have a lower intermediate diff after drilling. What is that?
Is that the trash man already at 3:16? 16 minutes? Who had 16 minutes after the hour?
Maybe there'll be two of them today. They're a little early today. Let me go find out why. No. So
go out there. It's like, you're not supposed to be here for another 20 minutes.
Wait, stop. Right. So the hook and roll, the skid hook and roll is a sort of a slower transition, because after drilling you have some intermediate differential in a symmetrical ball. It may start out at 0.00, under 0.008 is considered symmetrical for an intermediate diff. When you drill it, you might get up to 0.012 or 0.013 or 0.14. So you do have some intermediate diff even on symmetrical balls after they're drilled. Now, and again, if you think about an asymmetrical ball motion, like Nick said, a lot of times it's more sweeping. You'll get some hook down lane, but it's not as quick and usually not as sharp as an asymmetrical ball. When you look at an asymmetrical ball, they have shorter hook windows and they go through the phases quicker. They have a shorter skid phase and a quicker hook phase. Based on the intermediate differential, the hook window can be very short. Now, the problem with that is if you're a low speed player or a higher rev player and you don't match speed and rev rate, a lot of times that window gets so short that you'll hit the pocket, what you think is a flush shot, and it'll leave you 10 pins forever.
Yeah, they call it hook stop.
Hook stop, right. And that's not always good unless it stopped in the right spot.
At the perfect angle.
Right.
It can work on certain patterns, on shorter patterns where you're already playing far out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the bowling balls historically that have had a higher intermediate diff, the low rev, low speed player has struggled more often than not.
Correct.
Because the ball is just too much. It picks up and it changes direction and it goes forward. So that's very hard to strike, especially when you're lower speed.
And that's why we talk about a lot in our videos about the low speed, low rev player drilling a pin down.
Yes.
Asymmetrical.
To take some of that intermediate out, take some of that total differential out and make it stay on its axis a little bit longer and have a little bit more down lane.
Yeah, the key is to have it stay on its axis rotation longer. And then a slightly longer, like I said, it goes very short. It's a high intermediate differentials. And slightly longer or lower intermediate differentials. And you got to look at when you're about to drill that ball, look at the drill sheets in all our boxes. And a lot of times and every time it'll tell you what the intermediate diff is after drilling.
Yeah, that's important. That's the most important right there.
Yeah, the after drilling number.
Because you'll see with especially like the zigzag, the numbers change quite a lot with the
They
two
do.
drillings.
They do exactly, and that was the key.
Started with 045, went up to 057, or it dropped to the 030s.
Right. So yeah, you want to look at drill sheets, especially our drill sheets have all of the after drilling numbers. I just wanted to put this up real quick so you get an understanding of what it means when we say about a ball, having a shorter hook window, and not so much what it means, but what causes it. And when you talk to bowlers about it, they say, "Well, I want to bowl a hook a lot." Okay, and that's fine, But what do you want it to do down lane? And how does that fit in your game? Using an aggressive cover will get the ball a hook more, but it'll also shorten your hook window. You'll have a bigger sweeping hook, but it'll start to burn up as it gets closer to the pins, especially if you're covering more boards. You have to understand that too. Is that if you're throwing the ball, swinging the ball a lot, it's covering more boards. It's peeling off, bleeding off energy as it goes.
Right.
That's how it slows down. If it slows down too quickly, you've shortened that hook window so much so that now the transitional and the rotational energies are the same, and that ball rolls out. And that's a perfect recipe for a flat 10.
That's when you need to change balls or throw it different or move.
That's exactly right. So